Hello, everyone. We are back with another round of Turing Mock Interview series. I'm Jose, and I'm tech lead at Turing, and I'm from Montreal, Canada. And here I work hiring the best engineer by helping them with the vetting process. I have more than 17 years of experience, and my expertise lies in JavaScript. Today, I will be interviewing a musician for the role of an experienced React Native developer. And I hope this turns out a great experience for you. And just a quick reminder, this interview, this question is for YouTube purpose. It's to demonstrate how the process is. And if you go to an interview, you might get some different questions, a few different questions. Sounds good? All right, so let's hear a little bit from you, Zishan. So first of all, how are you doing and how your day doing so far?
Thank you so much, Jose. I'm doing great. Well, thank you so much for the introduction.
Cool, man. So let's get started this interview. Okay, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your background, okay, your professional experience, and then I'll take from there. Sounds good?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm Zishan Al-Sati from Islamabad, Pakistan. I done my graduation in computer science from one of top renowned University of Pakistan. Also, I took various courses from Harvard and Microsoft through online platforms. After graduation, I joined a software house locally as a software engineer, where I start with JavaScript technologies, including React, Angular, Vue for web, and for the backend, Node.js. And for hybrid applications, we use React Native. And also I done develop in native iOS using Swift and native Android using Kotlin. I worked there for almost 2.5 years. After that, I switched to the online freelancing platform, where I mainly focus on JavaScript technologies as a full stack developer. And on a top rated freelancer back there after I joined a Turing, and now I'm currently working with one of healthcare organization through Turing.
Great, that's great. All right, so okay, man. So could you please tell me, okay, a little bit more about some interesting project that you have been working with React Native? Okay, let's focus on React Native because I checked your background. Okay, if I'm going to talk to you about everything, this interview will take days. Okay, but let's focus on React Native. Could you please tell me a little bit about some interesting project that you have been working on?
Yeah, sure. If I talk about a particularly React Native, I developed almost 15 to 20 plus application in React Native, and also wrote some React Native module to expose native functionalities of a native iOS and Android side on JS side. So I work on real-time chat app communication where I use sockets, the custom solution, and also using third-party libraries like Sandbird and GetStream. Also working on real-time streaming using Vivilo, and integration of real-time geolocation using maps, working on social media features like feed listing, like, dislike, comments, sharing on to different other social platforms. Also provide a login functionalities, the OAuth using Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also work with the payment solution like Stripe, Braintree. So yeah, so almost I cover every thing in React Native. So these are some glimpse of React Native journey.
Okay. And I will start with basic questions, okay? And then we can progress during the interview, and then we see how it goes, okay? So my first question for you is, what's the difference between props and state?
Yeah, so if you talk about state, it is used to control the components. The variable data can be stored in the state. It is mutable, means a state can change the value at any time. And props are used to pass data to the different components. It is immutable, means prop cannot change their value. It provides a container connection between a container component and a presentation component.
Cool. And if you want to update that props, how would you do that?
Send the props basically by passing the prop in the element section. Like for example, we have a component A, so I pass, and the props has some data. So using the open angle bracket A and then component name, then the props name, and is equal to the value of props. And props cannot, and then init component use that value of prop, but cannot change that.
Cool. And what are containers, okay, or smart components?
Container components are those rect components that have access to the store. These components make API call, do some processing, and contain the app business logic. Container components shouldn't have view logic or presentation logic. They have only some business logic and API processing, API calls, and some business logic processing. The basic job of container component is to complete the values and pass them as a props to the presentation component or the dump component. Hence, due to their make processing, API calls, and the business logic containing stuff, that's why we are referred as smart components.
Cool. And it's following some design pattern. Okay. So what do you understand by component-driven development or CDD?
Yeah, so component-driven development or CDD is a development methodology that anchors the build process around components. It is a process that builds a UI from the bottom up by starting at the level of components and ending at the level of pages or screen. Some of its benefits are number one, focused development, increased UI coverage, targeted feedback, build a component library, parallelized development, and testing visually.
Okay, so you mentioned testing. I kind of like it. Okay, but before we go to testing, this component-driven design or component-driven development, it's similar to a design pattern that I used to work years ago called atomic design, right? They are pretty similar. So you start creating the smallest component, which is great for React.js and for React Native, because of React.js using reconciliation to update the view based on components, right? You guys already know that. So component-driven development is similar to atomic design. You create the smaller piece, and then you are going to combine them to another component, and then combine. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Cool. And how would you test them? So what's the best practice in terms of testing for a component-driven development?
Basically, for the testing purpose, we use a Jest for the testing and using some test cases and execute those test cases and then check the resultant output. If it is match, if it is correct as expected, then the test case is passed. Otherwise, it's failed.
Cool. All right. So move on to more for UI. Okay. Could you please explain me the use of Flexbox in React Native?
Yeah, sure. So Flexbox is designed to provide a consistent layout on different screen sizes. Flexbox works the same way in React Native as it does in the CSS on the web, but with a few exceptions. The default are different, with flex direction defaulting to column instead of row, if you talk about a web. Similarly, align content defaulting to flex start, but in the web, it's stretch. And similarly, the flex string default to 0 instead of 1. And the flex parameter support only a single number instead of multiple numbers. We normally use a combination of flex direction, align items, and justify content to achieve the right layout.
I like to use Flexbox as well. Okay, just to mention, just in addition to that. Okay, all right. So, regarding my previous question about components, what do you understand about higher order components or higher order functions?
So basically, a high order component is HOC, where the parameter is of another component. It's, if we talk about the example, it's similar to the for each loop, that the for each itself function and it take another function as an input. Similarly, HOC component is a component that take another component as an input.
Great. All right. And just in addition to that, we cannot use higher order component inside the rendered method, because as I mentioned before, right? So React use reconciliation based on components to update the view. So if you have a component that always change, you could break your application because it will start to re-rendered forever, right?
Yeah, similarly, there are by default multiple high order component defined by the library. Like the basic one is connect. So it accept the map state to prob, map display to prob, and another component.
Yeah.
So, but we can create custom high order components too.
All right, this one is the most famous one, I would say, connect from Redux, right? Also, if you go for UI libraries like Material UI, you will see higher order function that start with styles, with this, and that. So this is a good practice in terms of higher order components. Start with the keyword with. Okay, it's not mandatory, but when you get a large application and then you see at the bottom, you see export with styles, with hooks, with this, and that. You see that component or that function is a higher order component. Cool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a best pattern. It's like the same thing that we are using the custom hook by the starting with the use. What?
Correct. Yeah. And so, by the way, so how can we use custom hook with React Native?
Custom hook with the React Native. So it's like the same. For example, if we talk about the creation, hook contains some UI or some manipulation logic. So it's start with the word use. Like I have some hook use. Like use state. So it's using we have two things. One is value, other is function. So it gets we use the array notation. The open angle bracket, the close angle bracket, and the first parameter is the data, and the second parameter is for the set data. So the second parameter is to set the state, and the first parameter is the state value.
Cool. And then usually start with hooks, right? With the keyword use, and also what I recommend in terms of higher components and React hooks as well, custom hooks. Just create one state. Because that React will trigger re-render every time you change a state. So when you are creating higher functions or higher components, keep in mind just update the state when it's necessary, because otherwise you will trigger re-render in your application all the time. So just have one state. You can use refs, okay, to accumulate values, but just update the state once it's ready. Okay, and as we talk about use refs, so what do you understand about use refs?
Use ref is basically if you talk about the state variable, if we can manipulate the state value by the help of use ref. For example, I have some state variable x, and I have to keep eye on that variable. I am using use ref and pass the x variable there. So now we have a reference of that variable, and we have an every time if the value of x is changing, we have a reference for that. So we can manipulate, or we can write our logic accordingly.
Correct. And ref is different from value, right? So when you work with refs, you are working with the reference, not the value itself. So if you call a set timeout and try to get the value from the user ref, you will get the latest value, right?
Yeah.
And also it won't trigger a re-render. That's a good tip for performance as well, okay, regarding React.js. So let's now go back to React Native, specific question for React Native, okay? How do you, implement a screen navigation functionality in React Native?
Yeah, so basically the screen navigation was a main functionality of any mobile app. There are different multiple screens involved for the app. So managing the presentation of and transition between multiple screen is typically handled by what is known as a navigator. A React navigation provides an easy-to-use navigation solution with the ability to provide to present common stack navigation and tab navigation pattern on both Android and iOS. The community solution is to navigation is a standalone library that allows developer to set up the screens of an app with a few few lines of code.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, and I would like to call upon our React native fellas here, or any developer that are watching us today. So if you have 3+ years of experience and are confident with the skill set that you possess, you can head on turing.com/jobs, search for the job that is suitable for your tech stack, it could be React Native, could be React.js, could be Python, Java, C#, anything. Go to turing.com/jobs, search for a job for your tech stack, apply for that job, and once you complete the vetting process, okay, you find a remote job as we did, and then you can work traveling around the world with your family if you wish to, right? What else? One more thing. If you are enjoying this content, please hit the like button. That's why I know that you are enjoying this content. And leave a comment section below if you leave a message there if you would answer this question in a different way, because I like to hear that. I read all the comments, and it make me learn too, because sometimes I got the comments in the section that are really great, and it make me a better developer, and you can help other developers as well. Okay, as that said, okay, let's go back to our React Native interview. And this one is also happens in React.js as well. So what is the React Virtual DOM? Okay, how does the Virtual DOM work in React Native?
Basically, virtual DOM is the frequent DOM manipulation are expensive. Like if we talk about the old, for example, web concept, there is a real DOM and there is some computation cost to differentiate between those nodes. But React introduced a thing that is virtual DOM, and the whole React library based on this virtual DOM. Basically, it is a virtual representation of DOM in a memory. So it's not a real DOM, it's the copy of DOM, and it's a virtual DOM. So it's synced with the real DOM with the React DOM library. This process is called reconciliation. And React compare the virtual DOM and pre-updated virtual DOM and only mark the subtree of components that are updated. This process is called diffing, and the algorithm behind diffing is called diffing algorithm. And React uses keys to avoid unnecessary re-renders, and similarly if there are you using multiple state variables props, so it renders the particular element if the particular state value is changed. For example, you are using X, Y, Z, there are 3 states there, and you are creating the view by using X, Y, Z state, and you only update the value of X. Now due to this virtual DOM and the process of reconciliation and using diffie algorithm, it only updates the node and the element X instead of updating Y and Z. That is much computation. So it's used to more optimized approach, and that's the beauty of React.
Cool. And to be honest, I'm learning with you today. Okay. All right. So, and then I just realized one thing. Today is never mind. I was just going to say today my birthday, but never mind. Let's go back to our interview. Okay. So next question. Can a React Native be used, I'll say, to build application for TV, for example? I've seen a lot of components for that. React.js uses a lot of components like React Video. So can a React Native be used to build such applications for TV, I mean?
Technically, yes. React Native does support TV, but community support and the better documentation are not yet available. Basically, TV devices support has been implemented with the intention of making existing React Native application just work on Apple TV and Android TV with few or no changes are needed in the JavaScript code for the application. Since there are a lot of similarities between iOS and tvOS APIs, it was easy to add TV support in React Native, but there are not many developers using React Native for building TV application. At one point, the community was discussing removing it from the core library. Also, people facing a few of the issues or problems while using React Native to develop TV. So in simple word, basically it support a TV, but there is not much better support in terms of community and documentation are yet available.
Yeah, that is something that we need to improve, definitely. So basically, yes, it does support TV, but so you have to discover how to do that because the documentation are not great as the library, right?
Yeah,
cool.
You're right.
All right, man. So, okay, so we are coming to the end. Okay, I just have one more question for you. This question is, how could we check, okay, if you are working with a React Native application, how can we check if the React Native app is in a debug or is in a release build?
Yeah, basically the React Native already give the variable, that is environment variable, the underscore double underscore dev double underscore. So if that value is true, so it means that you are using the debug in application. But if that value is false, so it means that you are using the release build.
Cool. And what's the best way to debug a React Native application?
You can use the if statement. That, for example, if in the parentheses, you can use the underscore dev underscore variable. It can be a Boolean variable, true or false, and you can put the statement there. Like you can put some console, and wrote some log value there, and you can check that if the build is in the dev environment, then it will be log the console. Otherwise, it will not.
Okay, basically what I'm saying is we console log whatever we want inside a double score debug variable, right? All right. Yeah. One last question. Okay, is there any way to inspect the React.js, the React Native app? For example, if I want to check the UI, why the title is breaking? So, is there any way for us to inspect that?
Yeah, basically, you are talking about the debugging. We can use a Chrome debugger. You can shake the application or by pressing the Command D on the keyboard to open the menu, and you can click on the Chrome debugger. Then it will open the link on your console Chrome browser, and you can debug your application, the JavaScript code, and also some UI logic there.
Cool. So we could use Chrome debugger to inspect the UI and also the JavaScript as well, correct?
Yeah, basically I use for both purposes.
Okay, great. So as that said, that was my last question for you. Thank you, Zeishan. It was really nice to speak to you. It was my pleasure. I learned a lot with you today. Okay. And to everybody else, thank you for turning this mock interview series real. And I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. We shared valuable tips here. As I mentioned, this question was more for YouTube purpose. If you go to an interview, you might get some different questions, of course. And if you are looking for some specific mock interview series, you can let me know in the comment section below. For example, we are following you and we are taking the mock interview as your demand. Okay. What else? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this content if you enjoy that. And we will be back very soon with new episode of Turing Mock Interview series. Till then, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse. Stay close to Turing, and I'm pretty much sure that you find a job as we did. Okay, as that said, that's a wrap. I hope to see you all again in the next video, and happy coding.